What happens when a child reports abuse, only to be punished for it instead? Taylor Cadle's story is a tragic tale of a young girl who sought help, only to be met with disbelief and punishment. It all started when Taylor, a 14-year-old girl from Tennessee, bravely went to the police to report her stepfather's abuse. She thought the authorities would protect her, but instead, they turned on her. Taylor was charged with filing a false report, and her world shattered. To understand the full weight of this injustice, we need to rewind to the beginning. Taylor's life was filled with fear, a fear that led her to speak out. But instead of the protection she so desperately needed, she was accused of lying. This is the story of betrayal, heartbreak, and the desperate fight for justice. As we walk through the harrowing details of Taylor's journey, we'll uncover the flaws in a system that failed her and explore the emotional toll it took on a young girl just trying to survive. Taylor Cadle's early life seemed like it could have been a fresh start. Born into a difficult situation, she was placed in foster care as a child. But when Henry Cadle adopted her, it seemed like she had found a new family, a chance at stability. However, what Taylor didn't know was that this new chapter would quickly turn into a nightmare. At just 13 years old, Taylor began facing abuse at the hands of her adoptive father. The man who was supposed to protect her instead became her tormentor. Henry Cadle, who had a history of violence, subjected Taylor to physical and emotional abuse, and she was left feeling isolated and trapped. Her school life, once a place of safety, became a reminder of her struggle at home. As her grades slipped and her behavior grew erratic, it became clear that something was terribly wrong. But Taylor, in her desperation, found the courage to reach out. She reported the abuse to the authorities, hoping someone would finally listen and take action. Sadly, what followed was far from what she had expected. Instead of finding a safe haven, she found herself accused of lying, further adding to the emotional and psychological toll she was already enduring. Taylor's story is not unique. Many children in abusive situations face similar struggles, often silenced by a system that fails to protect them. At just 14 years old, Taylor reached a breaking point. The pain she had endured at home, the constant fear, and the emotional scars had pushed her to take an incredibly brave step. She went to the police, reporting the abuse she had suffered at the hands of her adoptive father, Henry Cadle, and even her great-uncle. She hoped that the authorities would listen, that they would finally intervene and rescue her from the nightmare she was living. Instead, her courage led to a devastating turn of events. Rather than offering her the protection she so desperately needed, the police accused Taylor of lying. They charged her with filing a false report, a crushing blow to a young girl who had already been through so much. Instead of being the victim, she was treated like a criminal. The emotional toll this took on her was immense. She had trusted the system, believing that someone, anyone, would stand up for her. But instead, she was punished for speaking out. In one of the most heart-wrenching moments of her ordeal, Taylor asked, "What did I do for you to punish me?" This question, filled with pain and confusion, encapsulated the raw injustice she faced. A young girl, who had already suffered so much, was now being blamed for seeking help. It's a tragic reminder of how easily the system can fail those it's meant to protect. Taylor's story isn't just about one girl's struggle. It's about the many children who find themselves in similar situations, silenced and blamed when they should be supported. Taylor's struggle didn't end with the false accusation. The system that was supposed to protect her failed her at every turn. She was left without guidance, without anyone to help her navigate the complexities of the legal system. The weight of the situation was overwhelming for a young girl, and there was no one there to advocate for her. No one to explain her rights or help her understand the next steps. Taylor was left to face the consequences of her courage alone. Florida State Senator Lauren Book, a vocal advocate for children's rights, expressed her concern over Taylor's case. She asked, "What was a person for Taylor?" This question highlights a critical flaw in the system, a system that failed to provide the necessary support for a vulnerable child who was simply seeking help. Instead of finding a mentor or a voice to guide her, Taylor was trapped in a maze of bureaucracy and blame. As the investigation continued, Taylor's emotional and psychological toll grew heavier. She was advised to plead guilty to the charge of filing a false report, a suggestion that no child should ever have to face. The plea deal was presented as a way to get it over with, a way to end the nightmare she was living. But in reality, this was a devastating compromise. Taylor was telling the truth, yet she was pressured into accepting responsibility for a crime she didn't commit. This is a tragic example of how the system can manipulate and pressure vulnerable individuals into decisions that only deepen their trauma. Taylor's plea deal wasn't about justice. It was about expedience, and it cost her dearly. Despite the overwhelming odds against her, Taylor didn't give up. She knew the truth, and she was determined to prove it, no matter how long it took. Taylor began gathering evidence to support her claims, using whatever she could find. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence she collected was a photo showing bruises on her body, a silent but undeniable testament to the abuse she had suffered. But she didn't stop there. Taylor found a condom box in her adoptive father's vehicle, a disturbing clue that further pointed to the horrifying reality of her situation. She also discovered a clock inside Henry Cadle's car, which would later play a crucial role in proving the timeline of events. With this evidence in hand, Taylor took another brave step. In 2017, she returned to the authorities, determined to make them listen. She presented her findings, hoping that this time they would believe her. It wasn't easy. She had already been dismissed once, accused of lying. But this time, the evidence was irrefutable. The authorities took her claims seriously, and in 2019, Henry Cadle was arrested and charged for his crimes. His arrest marked the beginning of a long-awaited sense of justice for Taylor. While the legal process was far from easy, and the emotional scars would never fully heal, Taylor's persistence paid off. Henry Cadle was eventually sentenced for his abuse, a victory that was hard-won through years of determination. Taylor's fight for justice was not just about holding her abuser accountable. It was about reclaiming her voice and proving that the truth could not be silenced. Her courage to keep pushing forward, even when the system had failed her, is a powerful reminder of the resilience that lies within those who are determined to seek justice. After years of enduring injustice, Taylor's persistence finally led to the resolution she so desperately needed. The false charges that had been leveled against her were officially overturned. In light of the evidence Taylor had gathered and the eventual conviction of her abuser, the authorities recognized the grave mistake they had made in accusing her of lying. Taylor's name was cleared, and the truth was finally acknowledged. She had been the victim all along, not the criminal. Henry Cadle, the man who had once been her adoptive father, was held accountable for his actions. In 2019, after a long legal battle, he was convicted of sexual battery. The court sentenced him to 17 years in prison, a harsh but necessary consequence for the abuse he had inflicted on Taylor. While no sentence could ever undo the damage he had caused, it was a small measure of justice for the years of pain and suffering Taylor had endured. For Taylor, the road to justice had been long and painful. But with the charges against her overturned and Henry Cadle behind bars, she could begin to rebuild her life. The emotional scars would remain, but the weight of being falsely accused had been lifted. Her story is a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the importance of never giving up, even when the system fails you. Taylor's victory wasn't just about her own healing. It was about giving a voice to all the other children who are too often silenced and forgotten. As Taylor's journey towards justice came to a close, she shared a powerful message. In an emotional statement, she expressed her hope that her story would help other children who find themselves in similar situations. She wanted her experience to be a wake-up call to the authorities, one that would hold them accountable for their failures and push them to do better for future generations. Taylor's words were filled with a deep desire to ensure that no child would ever have to endure what she did. No child would be dismissed or blamed when they sought help. Her final reflection was just as powerful. Taylor wanted the authorities to fully understand the gravity of their mistakes, to recognize the harm they had caused, and to take steps to fix the broken system. She emphasized the importance of creating a system that listens to children, that protects them, and that supports them in their most vulnerable moments. Taylor's message was clear: change is needed, and it starts with acknowledging the flaws in the system and working to correct them. Taylor's courage in speaking out, even when the world seemed to turn against her, serves as a reminder of the strength of the human spirit. Her fight for justice was not just about her own healing, but about sparking a change that would protect future generations. Her story is a call to action, one that challenges us all to ensure that every child's voice is heard, and that no child is ever left to suffer in silence again. What do you think should be done to protect children in situations like Taylor's? Let us know in the comments below. If you believe children deserve justice, share this story and help raise awareness. Together, we can make sure that no child is ever silenced or left to suffer in silence again.